So nice to see each of you. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Judy Andrews, long time no see, my New Mexico friend. Hey, Diane. Hello, everyone. Carol, Mary, Ed Oliver.
I lost track of you. You move around a lot.
Thank you. Hey, Lynn, Reagan, bless you. Bill Nation, Nita and Jim, wonderful. Good to see you all.
And to see you.
Gathering, gathering, gathering.
Here we are.
Ed, how's Hope doing?
Ed, Lynn asked you a question. Did you hear it?
It was Andrea. How's Hope doing?
Hello, Elaine.
Oh, sorry. I just saw light
Nice to
up.
see you.
That's okay. I don't think he's hearing us.
Yeah, there might be a glitch. That's kind of weird. I don't know why.
Ed, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Where do you type? Down here.
I think he turned his audio off. Ed, can you hear us?
We can, and I've just turned mine up.
Oh, okay.
I noticed that mine was way down.
Andrea was just asking how Hope's doing.
Oh, I'm going to report. Wait till you see that photo on the first page of the portfolio. I mean, the thing. It was taken this afternoon. She's doing very well. But I'll report in about all that. So I think it's 6:46. Time for us to begin our 15-minute sit, if that's okay. If you don't mind, mute yourself. And here we begin.
Tommy.
So good to see you all. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have some new folks to this series, and we welcome you. And the way the series is going, you do not have to have been here before to have a sense of what's going on, because we really are reworking material to understand it deeply. And and we understand because we're in community. So there is so much to share about what happened after last Tuesday night and before tonight. And as soon as my wonderful wife gets on board, she's going to help get us started on that. Because, let's see if she's here. She's not here. Anyway, she will be here. But welcome, welcome, welcome. Now, let me pull up. I didn't bring it in. I will do that right this second. So here we go. This picture of my wife and me was taken 5 minutes after we left the doctor's office this afternoon. And he had told us, you don't have to come back. You are fixed. And it was a wonderful moment, as you can imagine. And I wanted us to, I keep making that mistake. I wanted us to start here because, Hope, are you on board yet? Not here. So I will go ahead and start. In that, when I got home last Tuesday night, Hope had had surgery yesterday, 2 weeks earlier, hernia surgery, and she developed pneumonia, and she was a sick, sick puppy, and still not feeling that she could be here with me in my office yet. Nevertheless, she really wanted to engage me in this issue. So I'm going to reread this piece from Matthew Fox, in which he boldly, I love him for this, says that Jesus never heard of original sin. The term was not even used until the 4th century, so it's strange to run a church, a gathering, an ecclesia, supposedly on behalf of Jesus, when one of its main dogmatic tenets, original sin, never occurred to Jesus. Sadly, Western Christianity is dependent on and chronically attached to original sin. But what they're really attached to is St. Augustine. The fact is that most Westerners believe more in Augustine and his preoccupation with sex than they do in Jesus. So I got home last Tuesday night, and Hope had been struck by this on a deeper level than ever before. We have talked about Matthew Fox. We have talked about original sin being a mistake of the church, which I believe is. We'll have a few nuanced voices about that during the course of this presentation. Not everybody agrees with Matthew Fox and me. Nevertheless, there is something about the understanding of the self that is impacted by embracing the doctrine of original sin. One of my quarrels with the church is that the doctrine of original sin gets in the way of our understanding that we are unshakably good. That goodness and embodied love is our true self. And the doctrine of original sin has led an awful lot of people, and we'll debate this over the course of this hour, but I'm arguing has led a lot of people to see themselves as a worm, a wretch, and having no health in them because they are quote unquote fallen. So when I got home last Tuesday night, Hope really had been shaken and disturbed on a new level by recognizing, and here she is, she's here. Hey, Hop.
Hi.
So, Hope, if you'll unmute and talk a little bit, if you don't mind, because one of the concerns she had was that we didn't make enough space for people to register their deep level feelings about what material we were covering. So, let me ask you to say a few words, Hope.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted. You're perfect.
Okay. I was just so upset when I looked back at growing up in the church. I was so upset about reevaluating all that bullshit that I'd been taught and how much I had trusted those people, how much I looked up to those people. And I thought, I'm going to have to go back and reevaluate everything. And I believed in my life. You know, like, how do you trust anything when you find out that the base thing, the complete contradictions that you felt internally your whole youth, we're not based on the gospel. We're not about being Christian. I mean, it just was, it just at a whole new level. It got to me. You know, I intellectually had known that for a while, but not on that gut level where you realize that all those people who said they loved you and that you loved um, were in such a different place and in a place that didn't lead to health. So on the one hand, you're being told um, you're worthless, um, and that's the bottom message. You're worthless. You're sinful. You're worthless. And I grew up believing that, just absolutely believing it. I did a good job of doing the performance stuff because that same church provides you ways to perform. But so I looked good, but I sure didn't feel good about it. So I wasn't upset with the presentation last week. I was just thinking that I didn't know how other people were reacting. I felt so deeply moved by it and disturbed by it. I just didn't know if anybody else was in that place. So that's it. Is that what you want me to say, Ed?
That's exactly. Thank you very much. So let's just have a moment of community conversation here. Take the mute off if anybody wants to respond to Hope. Carol, Anthony?
Yes, what I find so interesting about this in my own journey is that growing up in a different denomination and then coming to the Episcopal Church as an adult and having 2 graduate degrees from both denominations, that the Episcopal Church and its theological education was no better and no more liberal than the education I got at a Southern Baptist seminary. So recognizing that, quite frankly, I'm throwing all that theology away. And I was saved by the grace of getting a master's of sacred theology and spiritual direction at General, so I didn't throw all of that away. But so, you know, it's more than just personal. It becomes those of us who got and paid it for these graduate degrees in theology. And I almost
We married a
flunked out.
lifetime of it.
I almost flunked out
I'm
of General
married into this.
Seminary because I defied it. You know, and then I was a woman. So I look back at that and I'm thinking, well, I wasn't that far off the mark. I just wasn't, they weren't ready for me. And I don't think I'm ready for me now.
So, parenthetically, we are talking about Richard Rohr's wisdom pattern.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about how life and the journey of wisdom always involves starting with a certain order, usually an order that we have been assigned as a child, and then a disorder when it doesn't work for us, and then a reordering, something that makes sense, that has room for us, and that I would add, has room for our goodness. The fact that we are made in the image of goodness. So I just wanted to close parenthesis about what we're talking about are the very emotional parts of the journey that go toward wisdom, that include order, disorder, and reorder. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Hope. Anybody else want to step in here? And it's, this has got to be, these Tuesday nights have got to be a place of safety for disagreement. So if anybody has a different witness to bear, a different opinion, we will all feel better if we all feel safe enough to disagree. It's okay to disagree. Please, Martin.
I felt safe enough as a child growing up in a country church in Middle Tennessee, though it was the first Lutheran church west of the Allegheny Mountains, and it was out in the country. And all I kind of remember is original goodness.
Ah,
Whoa.
thank you. Thank you for bearing witness to that, Martin. Thank you. And that was your childhood assignment. You were assigned original goodness as a child.
I never felt like I was an evil being or anything.
Excellent.
I mean, the devil might come out occasionally, but that was not the centerpiece.
Yeah. Thanks, Martin.
I had a different experience. I experienced real joy when I finally, in my adulthood, met a teacher who talked like Matthew Fox, and it was, I wasn't disturbed by what I had. I was relieved and excited to move into a new way of thinking because it fit me.
Yeah.
So you're spiritually more mature. I got it.
Well,
I was also thinking about the fact that what was reflected back to us, or that I felt was reflected back to me, was never an emphasis on the good. It was an emphasis on the don't you dare get seduced by evil. And that was the thing you should be concentrating on instead of becoming who you are or finding your true self. I mean, I knew my parents didn't want to know my true self. I knew that deep down. um, but they had such a specific way to squelch it. And I'm not blaming them anymore. They were doing what they felt they needed to do and what they believed in.
Yeah.
I'm just saying about the effect long range, especially last Tuesday.
So, lest any of you are wondering why are we doing this, this is in the service of the arc of tonight's presentation, where I think Thomas Keating and a lot of other people I respect are saying that feeling that you are worthless or that you're fallen or that you are a worm, a wretch, a sinful being, that is a huge obstruction to the contemplative experience. Because if the self picture is one of negativity and one of not God, then how can you have the contemplative experiences that this class is all about, of having contemplative life and receiving the grace in centering prayer or whatever other contemplative practice you have? Okay, before we move on, any other comments about this? This is not the whole word. Please, get David.
Well, I think
it strikes
ahead.
me. It strikes me that on one level we see this as theology, these theological ideas, but they have a real world effect on lives, and on both my maternal side and my paternal side. My grandparents, my parents, aunts and uncles, I have seen the wreckage that this view of humanity can wreak, and it is so sad. Um, so this is serious stuff, and it's an important message of hope.
Mhm.
Thanks, David. Somebody else was gonna, yeah, Terry.
We had a powerful experience this past week because we had that wonderful Tuesday evening, and then Patty and I are quote unquote Roman Catholic, and we went to the parish for Mass on Sunday, and the priest preached about the four last things: death, judgment, heaven, hell. And it went downhill from there. And then we sang Amazing Grace, that saved a wretch like me.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been more powerful for us. What we experienced last Tuesday evening and what we experienced Sunday morning. So our deepest thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
I'd like to add to that. Oh, Diane, you go.
No, you go and then I'll go.
Okay. I'm also Catholic, raised Catholic, and I taught in Catholic schools. And I always used to say to our principal when I was teaching at the Catholic school in Alabama, you know, I never hear people talk about Jesus. I always hear, I always felt like everything was coming from the outside in. And I said to her, with Jesus, we should be coming from the inside out. And there were so many, you know, I think what we're growing toward is not depending on the dogma of churches or the doctrine, but learning to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and in our heart and in our soul. And even looking back, I had all my children baptized, and it's like you're just following rules, but didn't really have the depth of the relationship with everything that we went through as we were raised. Anyway, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Well,
it's freeing.
it does make sense, Dee Dee, and I do want to lift up that different theologians talk about what you've just been talking about with different lingo,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all about experiencing the divine presence,
Yeah.
the presence of the holy,
Mm-hmm.
the presence that unifies, the presence that makes me feel that God is in everything
Mm-hmm.
and is one. Anybody else before we move on?
Yes, if I could,
Yay.
I find that this concept of original sin, and then on the other hand, we have this image of the crucifixion where people are always saying, and I'm not sure that this is true or not, but God sent Jesus to die for our sins.
Yeah.
So if we've been redeemed through that, and I'm not sure that that's true or not, but if we've been redeemed through that, why is original sin still in play here? It just seems that there's a lot of contradiction and
Yep.
confusion around it all.
Yep.
I mean, what was the whole point? If it's true that Jesus died to absolve us all of our sins, where are we going when we get involved in original sin again?
Yep. So I want to asterisk what you've just said, because you mentioned the word redemption, and many contemporary theologians critique the word redemption because it's linked with sin and redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And their argument is there's no need for redemption because you're created beautifully and you're still beautiful, and God is still creating you as a work of art. So you don't need that. So just kind of bracket sin redemption. Ed,
Yeah. But I think we not only have a problem with original sin, I think we also have a problem with the whole Easter story.
yes, okay. So next time we're together, we'll deal with the cross and the Easter story. We won't get there tonight.
Yeah.
Ed Oliver, please.
Well, I left the Catholic Church when I was 20 after 4 years of trying to pray the gay away and realizing that the church X number of years ago was not a safe place for me to be. And from that grew a deep anger and resentment towards God, towards religion, toward anything to do with any kind of divine being. And I wasn't led back to God into the church by religion. I was led into it by the 12 steps of Al-Anon and Codependence Anonymous, where I found more spirituality and love and grace than I had found in any church. And that's how I got back to believing that I was not a deformed and flawed person, that I was in fact loved and lovable. And that's actually led me back to the church. So it's been a circuitous journey, I will say.
And a very fruitful one. I've borne the fruit of your faith, Ed. Any other word before I continue? I'm going to have to kind of scoot us through this PowerPoint tonight.
I put a link in the chat.
Oh, thank you very, very much, Judy.
My
A good-
problem,
dialogue before doctrine. Thank you very much.
Ed, my problem with original sin is that in the redemption sense, is that everything points to heaven. There's nothing about life now
Yep.
and becoming fully human. It's all focused on the
Afterlife.
on the hereafter.
Yeah.
And if you listen to some of the praise and worship, especially among the youth who are very vulnerable and very emotional, some of their hymns are just groveling.
Yeah.
I know that's a harsh way to put it, but that's the way it appears to me. And it's just what I hear implicitly in the way they're singing and so-called praising is, "Don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me." They're terrified
Yeah.
that they haven't got it just right.
Yeah.
And how would any and love? My premise, my beginning point is that God is love.
Yeah.
So anything that we attribute to God has to make some sense that I can understand, at least in my simple understanding, as what the word love represents.
Yep.
And if I parented the way that God has parented us, according to most of the contemporary Christianity, then I'd be nothing less than a monster.
Yeah.
Telling a child that they're fallen, that they're worthless, that they're vermin. Who does that?
Yeah. Thanks, Pete. All right, I'm going to move on. Thank you all for all of that. And now let me advance. So, one of the reasons that I wanted to do exactly what we've just done is because, hello? Let's mute, folks. Unless that was a plea for some of us to call the doctor. Is that Keating, in the chapter we're in, chapter 6, actually begins with the issue of original sin. And I swear I did not know that when we started with Matthew Fox last week. But this chapter, and we're not even going to cover the entire chapter, and it's just a very brief chapter. I think it's very complex, not that well written. Nevertheless, it is a question in this chapter about what does it mean to have original sin, salvation from original sin, meaning of the fall, all of that kind of stuff. And he leads us to understanding that the doctrine is being questioned by theologians today. Questioned is a euphemism. This doctrine is not being questioned by some theologians, but it is absolutely being rejected by others. I reject it, just to put my cards on the table. And he is saying that the full meaning of the incarnation is being seen in a different perspective. And as I've tried to understand this particular chapter, he's talking about, when he mentions incarnation, what is human? What is it for the Christ to become human? And what is it for us to be human? So it's a double question about what is humanity. And he so appropriately says, this is not modern critique. This critique was back in the 13th century with the Franciscans, John Duns Scotus and Saint Bonaventure. We will cover those in future Tuesday nights. But that they had the same idea that original sin, the fall, was missing the mark. Because they wanted to, and I will just go ahead and preface by saying, John Duns Scotus and Saint Bonaventure said that the cross was about love, not about sin. It was about making sure that we understood how beautiful radical love is, as opposed to punishing Jesus to save us from hell. So, yeah, let's keep going. Then, to my delight, he quotes both Teilhard de Chardin and Ilia Delio. And for those of you who are new, these are two of my go-to theologians, because both of them had PhDs in science, and also they were Roman Catholic in the case of Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest, and in the case of Ilia Delio, a Franciscan nun. And they have done a beautiful job. Teilhard de Chardin just died of a heart attack in 1955 on Easter Sunday in the streets of New York City. Ilia Delio is a very productive theologian these days. And to Keating's great credit, he invokes them to say that in their opinion, the doctrine is not to be taken historically. Now, he goes on to say something that I think is his editorial stuff. Keating is saying that they really are interested in learning what these events are trying to say underneath this. He says, some people are saying that this business of being fallen or focusing on sin has to do with our not submitting to the growth process. But then with Teilhard de Chardin and Ilia Delio, he's saying both of these people are evolutionary theologians, and they are saying that because of the reality of evolution, it is impossible to maintain the theology of original sin. So that led me over to an article by Ilia Delio, and here is her blunt statement about Teilhard de Chardin rejecting original sin. In light of evolution, Teilhard could not accept the church's position on original sin, since it belies evolution as the process by which the human person develops. Teilhard said, original sin, taken in its widest sense, is not a malady specific to the earth, nor is it bound up with human generation. Rather, original sin is simply the law of imperfection, which operates in humanity in virtue of its being in fieri. That is, the human person is still in the process of being created. We are creatures in evolution. So let me take you back to the very beginning of tonight, and my effort to put a title on this presentation is, in community and in contemplation, we are transformed into a new way of being, with new capacities for listening and love. And this is hearkening back to the Revisioning Christianity Conference in Albuquerque. The day after the conference, the Center for Contemplation and Action said, we reimagined faith as belonging and love in action, exploring how the wisdom of ancient traditions can guide us toward healing and wholeness today. And near the end of this presentation, we'll take a look at some of the quotations from Richard Rohr, but he early on said, the problem with Christianity is it focuses so much on sin management, and that is to miss the mark of what Christianity is about. Well, here we are. It's time for a little Richard Rohr. So, going back to Keating, he says, what the doctrine of original sin emphasizes, whatever explanation you give for how it happened, is experienced in all the religions. And Mukta, I'm going to be very interested in getting some feedback from you about this. Keating is arguing that some form of original sin appears in all the religions, It is the weakness, vulnerability, self-centeredness, and disregard of the rights and needs of others that characterize the human condition. So here Keating is focusing on sin, not as dancing and playing cards and sex before marriage, but having to do with cruel and non-empathic injustice, a cultural more than a pious definition of sin. Also, he's making a claim about what resonant forms of original sin doctrines, as he sees them, show up in all religions. So, he does come back and lands on understanding that evolution has a huge role to play in understanding, a healthy understanding of sin. And then he emphasizes something that Richard Rohr had put in The Universal Christ, which is a great, great book. I recommend it to you. And that is that to the degree we're fallen, what we're fallen from is an awareness that Christ is within everything that was made through Christ, or embodied love. Richard Rohr is never claiming that we lose our goodness, but that we have fallen from an awareness of our goodness. It always is there, very alive. And my argument is the power of a contemplative life and the power of centering prayer and however else you practice contemplation. It is a bringing back to your awareness of the fact that you are good and that God's presence is in you and that God's presence is in everything and that God's presence is one. And it gives us unitive consciousness. So because of the time, I'm just going to invite you, for those of you who are really studying these PowerPoints, to go up to the top right-hand corner of this particular slide and see Richard Rohr's critique further of the satisfaction theory of the cross and the penal substitution theory, that view of the cross. And if you want to come back to this, we can later on, but I have my eye on the time. Oh, good, we're about to the end. So, this slide is about my credo, my belief system, my own theology. Not only have I already stated that we are unflappably, unshakably good because we were made through Christ, or I like to refer to Christ as embodied love, and that everybody in every religion and outside of any religion was made with the stamp of embodied love inside of them, and nothing can take that away. And still, God is still constantly creating us. God is entering into the decisions we make based on egotistical pettiness to say, that's not the most beautiful thing you can do, and I'm going to enter into every piece of pain and suffering you have to continue to create you as a work of art. So, God is constantly evolving us. I do believe in evolution. And Teilhard and his followers understand that it is the energy of love that is another way of talking about God and God's presence. As someone earlier said, God is love. That's 1 John 4. And it's the energy of love that is actually evolving in us. And I think that's another way of understanding what Jesus kept talking about in terms of the kingdom of God. It is alive. It is love's ecosystem that is evolving in us. And even, Jesus says, it's working in us even when we're asleep. Now, the next two sentences, still in that title up there, are from Tom Shaw on the left and Martin Smith on the right. Tom Shaw was the superior of the Cowley brothers, the Society of St. John the Evangelist, and Martin Smith over on the right also was a superior. He left the order. Tom stayed in the order, died in the order, became the Bishop of Massachusetts, and was very close to our family. I always considered Tom a kind of an unofficial godfather for our son because he prayed for him all the time. Tom Shaw jarred me so much when he was the chaplain for the House of Bishops of the Episcopal Church before he was made a bishop. And in one meditation, I was sitting watching the House of Bishops do its work before he was made bishop and while he was leading a meditation. And he asked those bishops in this meditation to not be grateful for all that God had done for them, but to actually imagine God being grateful for them and what they did. And David Smith brought this to my mind when we were doing centering prayer at 5:30. Y'all, it was so jarring for me to consider that God was grateful for me. I felt so negative about myself because of the theology I had been assigned that it was absolutely jarring to consider that God was grateful for me. I say that to turn it around and say, I really believe that God is grateful for each one of you. And everything you do in your life, God is working some kind of grateful creative process. Now, the reason Martin Smith is there is Martin spoke to the first clergy conference I ever went to. This was after Hope and I left the Baptist Church and became Episcopalians, and I had been ordained to the priesthood in the Episcopal Church. And Martin had mentioned in one of his presentations to that clergy conference that we were all a blessing. He was available for one-on-ones. I signed up, went to him. I'll never forget it. It was in a cabin at Camp Michael in the Diocese of Atlanta, and I said, Martin, I have never, ever considered that I was a blessing and that I had blessings in me. And he turned to the Bible, read it, and said, we've got to pray that you can be open to understanding that God is giving you a bunch of blessings and that you are a blessing to other people. It was a turning point. That is why this morning, early on, I sent this note to you all and said, the question for this Tuesday night is, are we broken or are we evolving? Are we essentially fallen and originally sinful? Or are we unshakably good in a constant process of creative artistry by the holy artist? If I understand this book that we're reading, which is Thomas Keating's last written work, he was imploring us to understand that the contemplative life invariably leads us to abandon the sense that we are originally sinful and we are fallen. I am a worm, a wretch with no health in me, perspective and narrative. Rather, Jesus and science and the ancient mystics bring us to see that God is constantly creating us, God is constantly evolving us, Teilhard and his followers understand that it is the energy of love that is actually alive inside of us and evolving us. Now, finally, so here are pictures of a woman named Sagrario Nunez, who happened to be my retreat leader for 20 years. I had an 8-day retreat with her every year in Haverford, Pennsylvania, or in El Salvador, or in Miami. And I'll talk about a life-changing retreat I had with her in my sermon this coming Sunday. But this past week, I was having a listening session with somebody about her life here in this church. And when it was time to go, she handed me in a different form this quotation from Pedro Arrupe, who was the head of the Society of Jesus for a long time. And I'll just read it because I think it's beautiful poetry and theology. Nothing is more practical than finding God, than falling in love in a quite absolute final way. What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything in your life. Love will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you do with your evenings, how you spend your weekends, what you read, whom you know, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. So fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything. So, stop that and open back up, and let's see what kind of conversation, challenge, questions, movement, all of that has caused in you tonight. We have 15 minutes. Just unmute, don't ask permission, just start talking. Martin, you've got your hand raised.
Just use the phrase life-changing experience, given what you're talking about evolution. Do you care to rephrase that slightly? Is it a life-refining experience?
So I'm writing this book called The Holy Atheist, and it has to do with the fact that I have had moments where I had to declare that the God I had been assigned, I no longer believed in. And it changed my life. Now, I appreciate your offering me an option there, and I will think about that, and I will try it on, Martin. I sometimes talk about a life oxygenating experience, an experience where I moved from, to use Mertonian language, from my false self to my true self. All of those metaphors are what I'm calling life-changing. Does that make sense, Martin?
Yes, I just didn't want it. I didn't want the change to have that air of, oh, well, I'm rejecting the bad old self.
Yeah.
On new clothes. But there's something non-evolutionary about that.
Yeah, I got it. That's very helpful. Thank you. Other comments or questions or challenges? I love challenges. I grow from challenges. Please, Diane? Unmute, Diane.
It just seems to me that sin is so me focused. You almost become selfish in a way. I'm trying to get myself out of sin. I'm trying to get myself to this better place, and where love frees you up, but love also puts you out there. I mean, you really have to be out there in the world.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to think about.
Thank you. I've never thought of sin being a self-focusing, selfish, self-oriented way of being. But it makes sense because I haven't found this quote, and I have been plagiarizing it left and right, that centering prayer is a process of letting go of my petty ego system to let come love's ecosystem. And the ecosystem of love is so other oriented. It doesn't abandon me. It puts me in the community of all of creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, to quote Dan Siegel, is a moi experience, not a me or a we,
Yeah.
but moi.
I think along with that, what Diane said about self-centered is we are born in an effort to survive, and depending on how difficult that was, we get wrapped up in the survival techniques, and they are all focused on me. And those are the things that make it impossible to be empathic with anyone else. I was listening to a podcast this morning with Thomas Hubel, and I put the link in the chat if you're interested. He was talking to Dr. Schwartz about family systems, and he says that the leaders that we have today are displaying this lack of ability to empathize with the problems around the world or of other people because of that focus on survival of themselves and their self-centeredness. I think that was very to the point.
Yeah.
Ed, are we going to do the last half of the chapter next week?
Yes.
Okay, you were not lying when you said this was a tough chapter, and the last like 4 pages, I have like question mark, lots of notes. I struggled with that big time.
So did I, and I am so glad to hear that. Please bring all of your concerns with you, and all of your questions. Please save them. I was stressing myself about not getting to the entire chapter, and all of a sudden I thought, let's take it. We've got all the time in the world, and let's take it easy. So thank you very much for saying that. Yeah. And I'm going to sprinkle in some Merton and Matthew Fox in with that, because I think it's really important to keep these folks in dialogue and understand that they're not saying exactly the same thing. There's a lot of nuanced texture in this stuff. But I do think that everybody that I'm quoting, they're interested in getting to a point where we live more in the divine presence experiences, or what I call the unitive experiences, or alternately called the contemplative life. In my mind, they all harmonize with one another. And where you come down about who you are and what human beings are makes all the difference in whether or not we're in community or we're demonizing one another.
Ed,
Please, Aylin.
could you talk just a little bit more about how evolution basically proves that there's no original sin? I feel very liberated, with the idea that there's not, but I'm not getting the connection.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I understand it, Lynn, but I'll tell you where I am in my understanding of it. And I think that the Teilhardian argument is that evolution, when you believe in evolution, gets rid of original sin because everything that you do as a mistake or as a sin is actually a growth spurt. Now, that does not mean, and I'm rushing to say this, that does not mean that we let go of accountability, because there are behaviors that need to be brought to justice. And some behaviors need certain people to be locked up until they can change. Because we can't say that all behaviors are okay, because they're not. However, I think that Teilhard is saying all behaviors can be seen as evolutionary steps.
I see. That makes sense.
And I can get that as long as I don't give up accountability and having a rule of law. Somebody challenge me on this, okay? Because my thinking is going through some processes. Please, David.
A question for you, Ed. Do you think that we have the choice to participate in our own evolutionary arc?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it depends, and I'll just be Mertonian for a little bit. It depends on how committed we are to our false self. Or if we're willing to, on a daily basis, do what Cynthia Bourgeault said was Jesus's superpower, and that is to let go of my will in order for God's will to come. And that's the issue in every centering prayer, period, in every communion, every church service, blah, blah, blah. Am I and is my system willing to let go of our false self?
So it's volitional.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a little hesitant to go there because sometimes it's just pure grace. It's a gift that comes in, and I haven't chosen it.
You still have the choice to receive the grace.
Yeah, and Keating talks about consent. Am I going to consent to this grace that comes in on me? Great question. Okay, we have room for, yes, Lynn? You're muted, Lynn. Lynn, you're muted.
The cynic in me is wondering if you think that maybe this doctrine of original sin was made up by the early church fathers as a way to keep the peasants and the people under control by telling them, you're so bad, you need us, you need
Yes.
to do the rituals, you need to play the game.
I really do think it's the fruit of imperial Christianity. Yeah. We really, I think, messed up when we bought hook, line, and sinker Constantine's conversion, and in which he made everybody a Christian who was in the empire. And then all of a sudden, your identity as a Christian and your identity as a member of the empire got absolutely indistinguishable. And that's why we had the desert brothers and mothers and fathers. That's why we had monasteries to be developed, so that there would be a safe place not to have to be an imperial Christian. And imperial Christianity is with us still today.
Right.
Are we citizens or are we subjects? And that is one of the most powerful questions anybody in the 21st century has to wrestle with. What does it mean to be a citizen of love's ecosystem and not of some strongman ruler?
And
Mike?
I think that is part of the biggest problem. One of the biggest we have out there is Christian nationalism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Falling right into that.
That is exactly what Christian nationalism is. Supremacy.
Let's not labor under the impression that the church is still not trying to control us.
Oh, please, yes. And y'all, that was Mike Klecker, and he's a priest. So y'all report him to headquarters, not me.
Please do.
Please report me. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. I think we should take a break next Tuesday. Hope and I are going to New Orleans to have a big Thanksgiving week with our son and grandson, and our daughter and her whole family are coming. So I propose that we take a break next Tuesday, and I will send out a reminder to everybody just in case. And we've had a yes on that. And then we'll start back on the following Tuesday, which will mean that we will be in Advent. And everybody will have to wear purple and blue and all that kind of stuff. No, not at all. But we will continue with Keating's very thin but very complicated book. And I've got some ideas about some slides that I want to put in. So that's the plan. I invite all of us. Oh, please, please, please. We had tonight some people who've never been here before, and thanks, Pete. And we had Lynn Schmischrauder and other people say, I want my friends to be in, and the Atlanta Contemplative Prayer Group is represented here tonight. And I just love the fact that we're from all over the place. And my friend Judy Andrews from New Mexico came in. And so thank you. Spread the word, and we'll continue to have fun. Let us take a few deep breaths together, and I'll offer some prayer. O Holy One, you are our shepherd. You lead us in paths of nourishment, of growth, of letting go of ways that do not foster our flourishing. And you put us in communities like this one. So for all of these amazing gifts of grace, we give you thanks. Help us to embody, metabolize, make our own, make it a part of our identity, all the things that are miraculously oriented to love. We pray these prayers in the name and the energy of love. Amen. Thank you all. Yes, namaste. Namaste.
Thank you, Ed.
You're very welcome. Thank you all. This is life-giving to me. I just love it.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. Enjoy
See
your
you on the other
family.
side of Thanksgiving.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Thank you all.
night.
Blessings, 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 blessings. Wonderful. Thanks for all the chats.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.